I always had an interest in metaphysics and spirituality, law of attraction, uh, occult wisdom, and things of that nature. But I never thought I would do anything with it aside from just use whatever information that I learned for myself. Uh, but lo and behold, now I find myself working, on the side as a hotline psychic, which is something I never thought I'd be doing, but here it is. It's just interesting how life is. We have lots of twists and turns and detours that we take. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I ended up doing hotline psychic work. Uh, you know, some people may be looking for a line of work that is flexible, something they can do from home, and maybe you have a talent or a skill as far as maybe a really great intuition that can help you to read others, uh, and possibly do readings for people. So, like I said, I always had an inclination towards it. Since I was little, since I was young, I do recall having some vivid dreams and some ghostly encounters. Now, I do think that a lot of people have these encounters. So I can't say that I'm more inclined. If you talk to the average person, everyday person, most people have like a ghost story here or there of something weird that happened to them or that they saw. But as for myself, yes, I do recall some weird things happening, but a lot more started happening around me as an adult, and that's where a lot of the paranormal activity I noticed increased for me was more as an adult, and I started to feel like, okay, I do have a little. I knew that I was empathic and that perhaps I could do well in the field of psychology, that kind of thing, mental health, that kind of thing. I knew that I could probably have a good career there, just in terms of dealing with the psyche, because I've always been interested in that kind of subject, just the mind and how it all works on the unconscious level as well. So I did notice that as I was like around a couple years ago, I would say like around 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, these years, I just noticed an increase in strange happenings, with which came in the form of dreams and even sleep paralysis and just different things that were happening that I wasn't sure what was going on. And I tried to kind of face it around that time, but at that time, I just didn't really know what to think. I was like, I'm just going to perhaps just pray and, try not to think too much about it. But those things I realized looking back were signs of me being. Now, I mean, some people are going to disagree, but of course, it's just this is my conclusion. I feel those were signs of me being a medium, really. Like all the little things that were happening were signs of me being kind of in touch with that realm. Uh, but I just, what, I just didn't really pay too much attention to it. And I just was working. I had my degree and my career already in another field. So I just would be working and, um, just really, just living life, day to day, normal, everything type of deal. Okay. And so I would just be working. But still these things would be happening, and it was kind of weird. Okay, it was kind of weird. So then what ended up happening is, well, we had the pandemic. So all these years I was having these little things happen, these little strange occult things that I would just see and experience and just ignore really. And then we had this pandemic, which changed the way people looked at work. I mean, things were just different. Things were, places were on lockdown. You couldn't really just get a job like that. And I found myself in a situation where I was like, okay, what can I do? You know, I went through a period of just not working, and I just was like, man, what can I do? What are my skills? What are my other skills? So I had to really start to look at my skill set. And, I did have a number of skills that really needed to be developed more, like I do like writing. Um, there's I've always loved reading and writing since I was little and all that, but that was something that I had kind of left on the back burner when I started working. So a lot of people end up doing that. It's like we have these little talents and skills that we have naturally, but in the interest of stability and making money, we kind of abandon them and put them to the side, and we go into something else. And that's what I did. So I was like taking stock of all my skills that I had at the time and skills that I wanted to have. I thought about, well, I do like other things. I'm artsy, I like, drawing and stuff. Maybe I could do makeup, but all those, stuff like makeup, which is great. It's, so it is a skill to do makeup, but it does take time to kind of learn that, I think. It's like you got to set aside the time to learn that. And so I was like, well, what skills do I have now that I actually have right now that I can leverage, that I can use, and that I can work with? And then, it kind of dawned on me. I always kind of liked, well, I always liked looking at astrology and readings, tarot readings online. And, it kind of dawned on me that, you know, my traits could be useful and valuable in that arena. So what I did was I actually sometime around, I think it was around 2020 is when I did my first test reading for a hotline company. Like I applied, they contacted me for a test reading, and that was when I did it. And you know what? It was something that I just felt like was the right thing to do, to find some other skills, because the job market was just uh, it was really odd around that time. So and also I want to talk about the job market a little bit real quick. It's just, getting a traditional job, a lot of us find, is not as uh, cut and dry. It's not as simple as a lot of people may think it is or say that it is. Um, Jobs are not always easy to get. And, well, of course, I mean, you can always remain positive and diligent and find something, but there are some drawbacks to a job. There are some drawbacks, which, of course, many people are aware of. There's sticking to particular schedules, there's office politics, and there's a lot of things that can go on in a job as well, like harassment, and um, it can bring a lot of stress. A job can bring a lot of stress. So it's like, while it's stable money, it can be, and that's another thing, it's not always stable, but it can bring stable money, but then it also can bring a lot of stress. So I was like, okay, let me try something else. Let me apply to this hotline. This is something I can do from home. If I do get hired on, it's something I can do. I can build another skill, have another source of revenue, income. So I'm not, in fear of not being able to pay bills, important bills and all that. Or even, it's not just about paying bills, but obviously you have to have things like, rent, mortgage, and all that, right? So I went ahead and I did the test reading for the company, and actually I did pretty well according to them, and they hired me on. And so that was that basically. But so I was hired on with a company, and actually, I was so nervous. I was so nervous about the whole thing. I was just like, okay, I'm hired as a hotline psychic, but at that time I was like, am I really a psychic anyway? I didn't really believe that I could do readings that were really accurate. I was really afraid of getting on there and, you know, possibly embarrassing myself, or just doing a horrible reading and getting, negative feedback. So I did one reading that year, and that was it. It was in 2020. I did one reading for someone, and then I didn't do another reading for like 2 years. So basically, I struggled in the job market for another 2 years because I was so afraid of really just getting on the hotline and going. It's not like I had to do it full time, but just to even just get on there, I kind of talked myself out of it. I started to think, well, I don't like my screen name, or I don't like. I was making I was kind of making excuses. I was just saying like, okay, I don't like this about the profile, or it's too late. It's been 2 years. Who's gonna get a reading with me? I've only had one reading in 2 years. I've only done one reading in 2 years. Who's gonna come to me for another reading? So I just wouldn't get online with the hotline. I would be turned off, and a lot of hotlines would let you go for that. They cut psychics all the time for inactivity, but miraculously they let me stay on. I don't know how that happened, because I've seen that some people have gotten cut for not being active. Miraculously, I stayed on, and then after 2 years of just struggling in jobs and you know going through the rat race and going through difficulties and stuff, I was like, let me see if I can get on this hotline. Let me see if I can actually pull this off, or let me give myself a chance. If I fall flat on my face, then at least I tried. Let me go ahead and try. So that's what I did. So I was like, okay, let me go ahead, and so I turned myself on, like, to active, available. And then I started to get people coming to me for readings, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was not as scary as I thought it would be. I got used to it, and I started to do readings, and I started to become real comfortable with doing readings over time, because that's what happens, right? When you do something over and over again, you get more comfortable with it, and that's what I did. So uh, now, I have some notes here. That's what I'm looking at. Um, so what have I learned being on the psychic hotline? Because actually, being on the psychic hotline has been very uh, eye opening. Very eye opening. I've learned a lot. It kind of, one thing I learned with the psychic hotline, it kind of helped me to think more about along the lines of business rather than being an employee. Because before, I've thought about, I've always kind of wanted my own business, but more so, I felt that being an employee, having a standard job would be the more stable route for me. But actually, I found that that's not the case. Actually, being on the psychic hotlines it has given an added level of stability, that because it's something that is from me. Like, I'm the business itself. Even though I work on a platform, and I've been on different platforms, different hotlines. Um, I'm the product. I'm the business. So people are coming. They're coming on the platform, but they're coming to speak with me directly. So it's a little different than my previous jobs that I've had. Now, another lesson on the hotline is that relationships, relationships really, really matter. They're important. They're very important to the human experience, and that includes romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships, relationships at work with your colleagues, but really romantic relationships too. I mean, romantic relationships are a huge part of life, human and the human experience, and that kind of being on the psychic hotline opened my eyes to that. Now, the psychic hotline can be brutal. People can be very demanding. They can expect you to know everything, which is not possible. Their expectations can be a little high, and sometimes people can be they can come in with a lot of doubt, feeling like they want to test you and see how psychic you really are. And that's where you have to have good boundaries, because you can't really, oops, sorry, you can't really you cannot really subject yourself to abuse. You have to have boundaries on the psychic hotline, and there's questions that you don't have to answer, and you can put that in your bio on a psychic hotline, that I don't answer these type of questions, and you know um, or I won't, if you give me negative feedback, I will not read for you again. So there's different boundaries that you can put in place, and then it's your responsibility to enforce those boundaries. Because just because you put them there doesn't mean that people you know, will actually read it, or or live by your boundaries. Um, Another lesson on the psychic hotline is that skill increases over time. With time and with practice, or just with consistent use, consistent readings, your skill will likely increase over time. So that also leads you to learn to trust yourself and trust your intuition, which is really important. You know, that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is trusting themselves and trusting their intuition. Like, let's say you meet somebody and you have this gut feeling about X, Y, and Z, but a lot of people, I mean, talk themselves out of their initial perceptions, when in fact the initial perception was right. When you're on the psychic hotline and you start to realize that, okay, you're giving these accurate readings, it can bolster your own confidence in trusting yourself when it comes to your own life. And of course, it's a balance, because, while you may be good with your intuition, and, you know, you have, let's say you have the skill, you're psychic, you're a very good tarot card reader, all of that, you still have your own lessons to learn. So it's not like you're just this know-it-all. Life still brings you lessons, and you're not going to know everything that's in front of you. You're not going to be able to understand everything that happens in your own life a lot of the time. So, but at the very least, you can at least trust your own intuition, and that can help a lot, to make decisions. So, another lesson with the psychic hotline is that psychics are likely to always be in demand. It's a field that has been around, for a long time. There's always been like mystics, soothsayers, prophets, things of that nature have always been around. I feel, as long as humans have been around, it looks like, there's always been some kind of spirituality that humans abided by. And then there's always like been like divination, throwing bones, reading tea leaves, looking at the sky and interpreting the stars and all of that. So divination is kind of like it's a part of the human experience. I feel, even though some people may feel like it's wrong and all of that, it's still something that is likely to always be around for the most part. And so psychics are likely to always be in demand. So it's like an evergreen type of field, basically, which is good because in the times of a recession, there's some areas, there's some like some things suffer, like retail, maybe retail clothing stores may suffer during a recession and all that. But I feel like psychics, from what I understand and what I've learned, um, psychics tend to, well, some people say that it's a recession proof industry. You know, that's what I've heard. And I think that, although I would say that, there are times that people may not want to spend on a psychic or a tarot card reader, but um, at any rate, that's just what I've heard, that it's kind of like an in demand, recession proof type of industry. And another thing with being a psychic, hotline psychic, is that it can help you to be better with public speaking and just being more comfortable with you. I feel that it can be useful to develop like a, maybe not a skill of public speaking, but just to at least get a more comfortable with public speaking, because it's the business aspect of it. And part of a business is being able to put yourself out there. On some psychic hotlines, like, you'll have to put your picture out there, and so you get comfortable with being out there. Like, if you may be a shy person, but you get comfortable with putting your picture out there, and having people rate you and give you reviews and feedback. Sometimes it won't be good feedback. Sometimes it might be negative feedback. But it still is just kind of can build you up. You can develop a thicker skin, just being able to tolerate more criticism and understand that people are going to have their different experiences and opinions of you as a psychic. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned on the psychic hotline. Um, so should you try becoming a hotline psychic if you want to? If you feel called to, if you feel pulled to do something like that, I think that it's a very interesting field. It can be a steady source of income. Like, once you build up a clientele, when you're on the psychic hotline, whatever platform you're on, it's important to try to be available as much as you can, especially when you're first starting. Um, you may want to still have your other sources of income coming in, because it may be slow at first. But, once you start to pick up a clientele base, and you start to get more feedback and more positive feedback, then, you can actually, for some people, you can make a full-time career of being a hotline psychic. And then a lot of people may decide to branch off into other areas from that. Other I think it's a good place to start for some people, especially, like, if you have an inclination towards that field. I mean, if you feel that you can, do readings for people, do some test readings for people. You do readings for, friends, relatives, free readings. You can just do some free readings here and there, get some practice in. Of course, learn the tarot deck. you know Tarot is usually the foundation of a lot of psychic readings, tarot cards. um, so it would be useful to learn a tarot deck, and you can also look at other forms of divination. But yeah, so I have I have a couple of tarot decks. This is a deck that I like. I can't remember the name of this. It's so pretty though. If if I, I'll try to put the name of this deck uh in the description, but this is the back of it and this is the front. Well, these are the cards. And when I look at this deck, it's just so colorful and juicy to me. Like the colors are so you can't really see the brightness of the colors as much in this. Well, some of them are upside down, but this is an example. It's a tarot deck. When you're on the psychic hotline, you may not have time to shuffle a deck and pull cards. Sometimes you just have to go off your intuition to get like a quick reading, but if you do have time, you can always just shuffle your deck. You can learn different spreads. I also have this scrying ball. Well, it's a crystal ball. I thought initially that first I was like, oh, this is kind of cheesy. It's kind of cliche. But I do actually use this. um, anyway, I hope this is useful and helpful for some of you if you're interested in looking into the psychic hotline or the psychic industry. It is kind of like looked at as this kind of kooky and strange and odd career choice, but now that I'm doing that, I'm like, wow, it's really something that I'm glad exists because it's been very helpful for me. Okay. So anyways, thank you for tuning in and take care of yourself. Until next time, be well. Peace.